Okay. See the data and investigate.
We're not
All
recording.
right, folks, so now we are out of executive. Do I have, wait, no, I don't have to get out of executive session. That's right. I do have to go back to my agenda here. We are moving right along. We are going to, we have no public comment. And we're going to,
Have to do the pledge?
oh, right, we need,
Yep.
you know, we don't legally need to pledge, just so you all know this. Drives me nuts. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I did check, we do not need to. So now we are on 4.1, public comment 5.0, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Informative. The lady who walked in the other door. Ah, there you go.
Are they still on the Zoom?
Yep, I need to share it. Just bear with me.
Come right in.
Yes.
You have a very select voice now.
Oh,
Use your classroom voice.
All right.
good job.
Because this young lady can whisper like a mouse, will be heard in the next town.
No place to
I
put
don't
my
know why
notes
it's
though.
doing this. Hold on.
Dry.
Is there a pull-out shelf?
What happened?
I dropped my cell phone
There is.
I'm with you.
on the floor. On the floor.
Oh, you know, girlfriend.
I can't get this to,
Oh, no.
Yeah, you want it?
it's, oh, it's presenting fine. Never mind. I'm gonna shut up. It looks fine.
I don't want the clicker, I want the.
Oh, okay, go right ahead. But if you want the clicker, it's that button right there. That's your
Okay.
mouse.
Good evening. I'm Eileen Peters-Weinberg, and I am the School Improvement Specialist for Sullivan County BOCES, and I'm really happy to be doing that. I was hired 3 years ago, and almost pretty much to the month in October. And one of the first presentations that I gave was to the administrators of Sullivan BOCES, and it was about culturally responsive education. So we've come quite a ways from that initial first presentation to where we are now. And thank you for asking me to share what we've been doing with you. So let me just go right ahead here. And that doesn't work. So let's see, does that one work? Ah, did Jeannie leave?
Yeah.
Check something. Maria, I don't know how to advance. Oh, do I just push it on the arrow?
Try that.
You know.
You just try this.
So what I'm doing, enter, hit
Nope.
enter?
These,
How tricky.
these two buttons, front, forward and backward.
So which one, here?
Yep.
Okay, fine.
Here's a microphone that might help.
No, I'm good. So I don't need a microphone. So we're looking at the parable of the blind man and the elephant, which many of you may know. And the original one, which was thousands of years ago from India, was talking about blind men feeling an elephant and each one coming forward with what they thought the elephant was. Now, in this case, we have diversity, equity, and inclusion as the elephant, and you can see that there are different responses to what each of those folks, those blind folks, think diversity, equity, and inclusion might be. Now, the thing to know about this is obviously if you're a blind person and you're feeling you only have one frame of reference. Folks today who are not blind, either literally or figuratively, do have the opportunity to see other people's perspectives. But sometimes it's very difficult when somebody has an idea about what something is to listen to another point of view. So, and that is really kind of what's going on in terms of defining diversity, equity, and inclusion, getting a really good working definition that we can then use and put into place in our schools and in our classrooms. And this button isn't working, Maria. I'm sorry. Should I try the arrow? Yeah, I pressed it, honest, I did.
Just scared of me.
Okay, I'm sorry. So the first thing we're asking ourselves is, well, why? Why are we doing this? The first reason, although maybe not the most compelling, but certainly a definitely compelling reason, is that we need to be in compliance with federal, state, local laws, policies, guidelines, and practices. And we have a whole raft of laws and regulations and guidelines that come to us from the federal government, constitutional amendments, New York state laws, and as you well know, from local agencies developing your own policy for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the second reason, which I think is certainly equally compelling, it's much more on a moral and ethical level, has to do with disrupting inequity. And I put up this quote from the frameworks for culturally responsive and sustaining education. And basically what it is telling you is that New York State accepts and acknowledges and understands the responsibility that we must prevent repetition of continuing to marginalize and undervalue our historically marginalized populations. And we need to do whatever we can to overcome any kind of oppression, neglect, and social isolation. And that's coming right from the state. There we go. This is another compelling reason, which is, I'm sure you know, that there is an increasing amount of diverse students, diverse populations that are becoming more and more part of this country's fabric. And as you can see in the far left, when we're looking at the year 2002, 59% of our students were white. Projected for 2024, we have 46% of our students will be white. And there are all these other wonderful different types of cultures and races that are, except for African-American, that are increasing in number. So this is a reality. This is not something that is possible. This is not something that is pretend. This is actual, and we really need to address it because it is happening now. Just very briefly, I thought I'd just throw up there for you the different types of federal law and constitutional law and New York state law that impact the types of diversity, equity, and inclusion work that we are trying to do. So starting back in 1964 with the civil rights law, and we come full circle in terms of looking at our state guidelines, 2015, but we have also much more recently, we have come out with, let me just show you, from the New York State Board of Regents, and I'm sorry that this is not, New York State Board of Regents has come out with frameworks, standards for professional standards for educational leaders. That came out first in 2015 and has been amended in 2018 to put diversity, equity, and inclusion, the third goal down the list. I'm sorry that this isn't clear. We also have social emotional frameworks, which came out. We have the culturally responsive and sustaining education frameworks that we are working off of. An organization called, used to be called Teaching Tolerance, it's now called Learning for Justice, has come out with social justice standards. So we are looking at frameworks and benchmarks that impact the way we are going to be delivering education to our students. And most recently in 2021, New York State has come out with a roadmap that is very similar to the one that they put out for the next gen standards a couple of years ago. And this roadmap certainly gives us the guidelines for what we need to do to build capacity, what we need to do in terms of implementing the different types of standards and activities and concepts that would support diversity, equity, and inclusive learning. And this brings us to you folks. I understand that tonight, I think I heard that you are going to be voting on the policy that you have created. And so this is local agency that is responding to the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion in our classrooms. The benefits of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm sure that most of you are aware of. And bottom line is we're looking to close achievement gaps. We are looking to increase graduation rates. We are looking to decrease dropout rates. And unfortunately, those types of things mostly impact our impoverished students who come from low income areas. And many of those students are students who are Black, Indigenous, people of color. The civic and social emotional benefits certainly are being addressed, as I said, in the benchmarks that New York State has put out for social emotional learning. And it has been shown over again in research that students who feel welcome, students who feel affirmed, students who feel safe in schools will improve academically. And that improvement can be dramatic. And please understand, when I talk about diversity, I am not just talking about race. I am talking about all the diversity that you can possibly think of, which we have all the time. There is diversity in religion. There is diversity in cultural backgrounds. There's diversity in socioeconomic status. So when you think diversity, just don't think students who have different racial or ethnic backgrounds. We are all diverse. We are all diverse. So these standards and these types of benefits are for all students, not just those who may come from skin that is different than ours.
I like the way you said that. That's something that we need to continue to repeat, because the opponents of this are arguing that this is anti-white, pro-Black. We've got to point out that it's for all children.
Yes, and thank you. And I also want to point out, this is National Transgender Month. So included in diversity are certainly those folks who have gender identity that may be different from what you know or what you're used to or what you're familiar with. So as I said, diversity is everywhere and it is all of us. And the economic benefits, well, in terms of a workforce, we can't do much better than produce global citizens who will be productive and certainly help to enhance this nation, help to enhance their communities, and certainly do well for themselves in creating good, solid families who will then be able to support their students in schools. Diversity, equity, inclusion, if you want to think of a funnel, that's the top of the funnel. And as the funnel gets more narrow, you have what's called culturally relevant teaching, which is one of the foundational pieces of diversity, equity, inclusion. It is a way of teaching through students and not just to students. It's a way of teaching using students, what's called funds of knowledge, which means the culture, the information, the education, the traditions that they bring with them from their homes into the classroom. So using that, embedding it, infusing it through the curriculum and instructional strategies. It's what's called culturally relevant teaching. It's also called culturally responsive teaching, culturally congruent teaching. There's a bunch of names, but basically what it means is teaching through the student, not just to the student. So that's the opening. Now, what has been done? Well, I'm going to tell you. So we're looking at general initiatives, and these were brought to your attention, I believe, in the June 10th board meeting by Maria Summer. And what she has talked about is raising consciousness and looking at the development implementation of the community as part of this work, certainly. DEI workshops during our superintendent's conference days, and providing ISS, the instructional services workshops, focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, focusing on culturally responsive and sustaining education, social emotional learning, and family and community engagement. And that's the broad brush. Now I'm going to paint with a fine brush. I was asked to develop an overview of what it would look like if we took those culturally responsive sustaining education frameworks and the social emotional learning frameworks and all those other acronyms that I just mentioned. What would it look like if we were to put them in boxes in order to be able to roll them out to the districts? And so this is what I developed. In the large box at the top, it says that all of these things are informed by what the state has put out, what local agencies have put out in terms of policy. So all of the things that are on that chart are informed by using the frameworks and the benchmarks that have been produced by the state. So if you just want to take a look at that chart for a second, and you can see that it goes from the knowing thyself, which is what research has shown to be critical. Before teaching, you have to know who you are, what your triggers are. If you're going to be teaching a lesson on the history of the Civil War, what do you believe about the Civil War? What have you been brought up thinking, and what may be a trigger for you? So that doesn't mean you shouldn't teach the Civil War. It just means you need to know where your own landmines might be, because what you want students to do is not think like you, but to think critically about what you're saying and have them develop their own ideas. So there's no indoctrination here. This has to be something that comes from within first before you can deliver it to the students. Does anybody have any question about this overview? Professional development for DEI standards. This is where I come in. I've been giving professional development on DEI for the past 2.5 years. That started thanks to Dr. DeFore, which really gave some traction to this work. He developed an idea for creating a roundtable where folks could come and speak their truth in a safe space. It became so successful that we just continued to work with it, and we talked about different topics every month. So that was for the folks from BOCES. We had administrators, we had teachers, we had social workers, we had a whole range of people that would join these roundtable discussions. These are the social emotional learning workshops that I designed, developed, and delivered. These became very popular once the pandemic hit. Up until this point, I had been focusing a great deal of my work on English language arts. But when the pandemic hit and teachers had to build the wings on the plane while it was flying, and we were also overwhelmed with what we needed to do in order to support our students, I thought it would be worthwhile to try and give some self-care, teaching teachers how to be mindful of their own needs and also to be mindful of the needs of their students so that they would learn practices and strategies about social emotional learning, which they would then turnkey train to their students. So we had whole bunches of folks that were coming to these workshops, and they have continued. This year, we're working on resilience and we have monthly workshops on that for those for teachers. But we also have, I've been going into a district and doing social emotional learning with the administrators, which has been a lot of fun because for some of them, that's a very new kind of concept to think about. Well, how do I be mindful and how do I just stop and breathe for a minute? And how do I disengage for those 30 seconds so I can respond instead of just react? So those are the different types of workshops that I've been offering. And these are the diversity, equity, and inclusion workshops that I have been offering. And as you can see up there, the DEI roundtable, as I said, that was initiated by Dr. Dufour. Those were the topics for not all, but many of the many of the roundtables that we had. We would have these discussions on those particular topics. We've been having workshops on difficult discussions because these are controversial topics and students are fully aware of the controversies that are going on. I'm talking particularly middle school and high school, but the littles certainly hear the news or they hear their folks or their families talking about it. So in order to have those difficult conversations, you need to know how to have a difficult conversation. Because unless you're prepared, because things can get really kind of tense. So you need to know the processes and the procedures and the strategies and the mindsets before going into having these difficult discussions so they can be productive. And I just want to highlight one thing. On December 6th, I've collaborated with a wonderful person named Alex Soloro on developing a workshop on LGBTQ, and it's an introductory foundational workshop. Alex will be offering definitions of different gender identities, and I will be discussing or presenting the different types of laws, guidelines, and policies that impact education in reference to LGBTQ students. And how will we continue to build on all of this work? Well, we have a newly established New York State BOCES professional learning network that Maria and I have been invited to join. And the first meeting of that will be at the end of November. This will be a group from all the BOCES in the state, the folks that are doing the DEI work for their particular region. So this way we will be able to be cohesive in what kind of work we are doing and how we'll be able to deliver it. We're looking at aligning workshops with activities that are shown on the New York State Ed DEI framework. And we're looking to engage a wider pool of participants, creating a larger DEI roundtable that will invite members of the community. It will invite students. We want to embrace a much larger population who will have input in what we will be doing moving forward, providing administrators and educators with professional development with resources and materials so they can carry this work forward in their individual districts and in their schools. And finally, expanded opportunities for all students to access excellence in education. Questions?
I thought it was very interesting, by the way. One of the more interesting things I've had the pleasure to listen to. I don't think I really have a question though.
Okay, if you think of one, I'm here.
I'll find you.
I know you will. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Eileen.
Thank you, Eileen, very much.
Thank you all.
It's a delightful presentation. Coming up next, I guess I have to wake my computer back up. Sorry, folks, I had to hop around. Okay.
now we are on the consent agenda, 6.01, 2, and 3. I need a motion. Gotta get a. Sorry, I'm hopping around here. Okay, thank you, Linda. A second, Anthony, thank you. Sorry, Sue, I didn't see you down there. That's all right. Questions? Comments? Okay, let's take a vote. Can you throw us back so that we're all in the same thing?
Yes, we should be all on 6.1 consent agenda items.
Gene, can you get me started on this thing?
Oh, it probably turned on. You need to push the button on this.
Well, I've been pushing it. How long do I need to push
No.
it?
Small one.
Huh?
The little button, not the big one.
Not the, oh, this one.
Yep.
Ah,
Then it just comes back on, but you're gonna have to put your password back in.
We have to vote in a minute.
That's all right. I was just thinking-
No, it didn't come up yet. Just Jean's helping Ken. Okay, so Jean will throw that up for us in a minute. And you can all vote.
Online voting is on.
There it is. Why is it? Oh, gotcha.
Carol, may I have your votes? And I'll put them in. Okay, thank you.
You've got Ken's also.
Yes.
Everyone else voted? Okay. Did you get mine?
Yes.
Because it says connection to the server may have been lost.
Uh-oh, so no, I got you, good, it came in through.
Great, thank you. All right, I don't see the totals, but
Unanimous.
unanimous. Thank you, Jean. Okay, item 7. The claims audit report. 7.01. We have to vote on, that only came up, Jean, I'm sorry, as 6.01. But then we have 6.02 and 6.0.
That's part of the consent agenda.
It's all part of it, but it's all labeled as 6.01.
Yeah, it's all in the
Gotcha,
same thing.
okay. Well, 7.01 is the claims audit report. And that is informational, but it's always a great conversation. How are we doing?
Good.
Anyone have any questions? Comments? Doing fairly well, except for that $34,980. That was what? So it's just correction. Great, thank you very much. Okay, since that's informational, that's all we need to do. These little things. Treasurer's report, August 2021.
Ken, do you have a
This is
question?
an action item. Sue, thank you. Seconded, please. Don't. Ken, thank you.
No, I
Okay.
had a question. It seemed to me that both of our treasurer's reports were about twice the size they usually are. Am I wrong on that, or?
They are longer, but they're not twice the size. They're probably maybe 5 pages longer than the previous
wow.
reports. I went and looked at them. It looks like when they scanned in, I think in the past, they didn't print the whole
They didn't.
WinCap report. So like there are 2 pages to any report or multiple pages to any WinCap report. And the last page is always the criteria of the report. And so when I look, there are a lot of, I think I counted 4, maybe 5 of these extra pages. So we can work on not scanning in the criteria.
Who puts this
reports.
together?
Jen Mitchell is our treasurer. So Elizabeth
Okay.
probably took out those second, when she was our treasurer,
Yeah.
probably took out those, criteria pages. When you run a report, you always get that left.
Okay, thank you.
All
You're
right.
welcome.
Well, I agree with Ken. If you look at it, we usually get like a page or 2.
No, they're usually 20 to 22.
Are they really
pages.
that long?
Yeah. 20 to 22 pages. And we would have added a page in the spring because we created the risk retention reserve. So that's, an additional
Right,
item.
yeah, I noticed that.
And then we'll have the other reserve when we fund it for the.
Do we need any more discussion, anyone? Questions, anything? So we're gonna vote on this one. This is the August 2021
Okay, we're ready for a vote. Jean's gonna, Jean, do you want to just raise your hand? Is that
Yeah,
easy?
you can do that too, that's fine.
Whatever works easiest for you.
Yep, I can do, raise your hand, that works perfect.
Okay, then why don't we all just do it by a show of hands? All those in favor, please show your hand. Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Everybody voted for it. Moving right along, Treasurer's Report September 2021. Again, I need a motion. Sue and Ken, thank you. I'm sorry, Linda, I usually throw you in there. Any questions or conversation about it? None? Great. I'd like to call a vote. All those in favor, show of hands. Great, thank you very much. Personnel matters. This is also an action item, so before we discuss it, I need a motion. Linda and Anthony, thank you very much. Okay, there you go. You got it all in front of you. Got any questions? Does anyone have any question about this? I think all the pages are here, right? Yeah.
Can I make a comment on it?
Please do.
You'll notice that Kyle Egan
Yes.
is being appointed general special education. You will also notice somewhere else on here, he's resigning.
Right.
Kyle is resigning from his position as a social studies teacher, which he was hired under. But he was one of the new teachers that were hired in a academic area, but he didn't have the special ed certificate. And we sent them out to go and get it. So he's the first one of that group to get his special ed cert. So he's resigning from the gen ed position and being appointed on a special ed tenure track. So that's why his name appears on here twice.
And it's a 4-year track, right?
It's a 4-year track, but as a measure of good faith, he will be credited with the 1 year, and I'll recommend him for tenure after 4 rather than 5 years. Does that make good?
Yes. No, that makes perfect sense. No one had any other questions about any of it? Okay, and may I have a vote, please? All those in favor, please, a show of hands. Again, unanimous, both in Zoom and at the table. Dr. DeFord, you will be next.
So I only have 2 quick items. One is me and one is going to be Jen, so I will give her some of my time. The COVID testing, we are in our 6th week of COVID testing. Jean, we started with 60
Yes,
and we're down to how many?
62 and we're down to 54.
Okay, so a number of our staff have gotten vaccinated and are no longer being tested. The testing is going 99.9% smoothly. We're basically doing it randomly, so we changed the day of the week that we do the testing. I want to give kudos to Jean and Melinda Christensen because the 2 of them are handling the entire testing process.
Wow.
Soup to nuts. And Jean is also supporting 5 other school districts using the same company and guiding them through the wilderness that is COVID testing. We had 1 positive case in one of our pools. And we actually were able to notify the individual before they started showing symptoms.
Oh, wow.
So the methodology does work. And knock on wood, and I think the only wood is sitting in my office, that old wooden desk I have. We have had no incidents since then. And Jean and Melinda now have it down and tweaked that we are getting our results pretty much within 24 hours now, which is excellent. We were originally told we could take up to 72 hours. So we're testing, and we have one staff member that's walking and not happy with it, but this isn't an us thing. It's a them thing. We're just the instrument of the testing. So it is going very, very smoothly. In Anybody have any questions on the
The
COVID
union is
testing?
cooperating,
Say again?
the union is cooperating.
The union filed a notice of claim, which is reserving their right to take future legal action. And that was the last we heard of it. The notice is unfiled, the notice is with our attorney. The union leadership has been very supportive and has basically reminded their membership that they must comply with the directive. And, could anything happen, Ken? Possibly. Do I expect it? No. That's all settled now.
As an aside, I was at an event and I was speaking with Teresa because she too was at it. It was a Rotary event. And she was clearly very supportive of this, which was lovely.
Yeah, union leadership has been very supportive of it. They've done what they're required to do. Yeah. But you can always tell when something is required. Well, I officially give this to you.
Yeah.
How's your family doing?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and that's kind of been the case with this. The other thing I just want to touch on, and I had sent this summary home to all of you a couple weeks ago. We had a discussion about staffing and what we were doing, and Jen, Donna Hemmer, myself, and then Jen, myself, and Jeff sat down and we put together a recruitment plan, and I'm just going to ask Jen to touch on that a little bit now, and we're just going to go into the generalities of it.
So as I discussed last month, recruitment is a challenge. I think I had mentioned that one of our principals was setting up Zoom interviews and about 50% were showing up on Zoom. So the trend this month was we had 6 people that we were hoping to hire for teacher aides in my talent ed queue. It took me 2 weeks and multiple phone calls to each person, multiple emails before I finally had to say, we can't do it anymore. We had to, 5 of them, we had to say no because they weren't calling us back. So our discussions were about, we need to reach the people that aren't looking. Because the people that are looking, a lot of them aren't really looking. They're just going through the motions. So what we'd like to do, and I'm going to pass this around, we're going to start, there's a lot of word of mouth. We find that word of mouth works. So Donna Hemmer developed this card, and we're actually going to be doing a mailing to the local towns. So we're going to do a mass mailing. We're also going to contact the parents. I think Bob was the one that came up with, there might be parents that might be home and maybe they'd want to work when their kids are in school. So we're going to take this same recruitment plan, Donna's card, turn it into an email, Facebook post, and we're going to push it out. We're trying to get to parents. We're also going to do social media, and we're going to ask our staff to share those social media posts. Maybe not everybody's on the BOCES Facebook page, but if I share it, I've now reached another 200 people. Everybody in this room, we could probably reach another 1,000 people.
I'm getting things like that, recruitment things,
Yep.
on my Facebook
So-
because of my connection.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're going to take the next step. A lot of times people come because they know somebody and they feel comfortable. So we're going to do, we know we can't do a sign-on bonus. We know we can't do a finders, we have the staff give them money. So what we'd like to do is everybody who shares the Facebook page or social media will win BOCES swag. We're going to place an order for something. So anybody, Donna's going to keep track. Whoever shares it, they're going to be getting some type of, swag. We're going to take it one step further.
Websites? Is that on the website?
Not yet.
Not yet.
But it will be.
Ultimately, as it's rolled out, so the postcard will wind up featured on the website.
Good.
As each thing is finalized, it'll be put out.
And I forgot to mention the postcards. We did this a couple of years ago, and we actually are going to give out physical postcards and take them to the dentist's office with you, to the doctor's office, wherever you can go, post them in the grocery stores.
And I'm just going to inject those postcards. It's going to be targeted. It's not a blind mailing around the county. We're targeting the
It's
zip
Liberty.
codes around Liberty.
Liberty, Ferndale, Youngsville, White Sulphur Springs, Livingston Manor, Parksville, Lock Sheldrake, Swan Lake, Harrison, South Phillipsburg. What we chose. So the second round of, if the staff then get someone to apply for a job, then they're going to get maybe a mug or something, another piece of BOCES swag. And then everybody we're going to do quarterly. Everyone who had someone apply is going to get a chance at a bistro set that the carpentry students in our carpentry program will be making.
And if
So-
somebody's hired, they're going to get one of the gift certificates from CPU.
Correct, that's right, forgot that, yes, that's right. Yep, and if they're hired, we already have gift certificates. For auto body, auto detailing, we have ones from cosmetology, we'll be getting them from culinary, so they'll be able to get a gift certificate as well from one of our programs.
I think that's very creative.
And a chance to be
And
strings.
we're making testimonial videos. The theme of this program is why I work at Sullivan BOCES. And we're going to be getting testimonial videos from all types of staff members and start posting them online, and these will be the things that will go out. It'll be a short recruitment video, and Donna will send it out to the staff, and if the staff links it on their Facebook page, and I don't have any tag us with this somehow, I don't know. But they'll tag it, and if we know that they've tagged it, then they'll get something for it. And that's all I got.
I think you're being very creative, and I think with a little luck, you'll pull in a few people, good people too, If I had a kid and I wanted a job while my child was in school, that school hours was a brilliant piece to find. Yeah.
And part of what we're also going to try to do with the districts is the carrot is if we get Linda Fisk, who lives in Monticello, but has no transportation, but her child goes to BOCES and she'd like to work during those hours and make some money, then we'll call Monticello and say, hey, listen, if you let Linda ride the bus with her kid to school, we'll assign her to one of your kids.
Yeah, it's a good deal. That's all good. Before we leave your report, can you just give us any updates on what's going on with the searches, say in Sullivan West and in Tri-Valley?
Tri-Valley, we've been retained as the search consultant. They appointed me at their last board meeting. We've already started the process. They have the brochure and the application that we did last time. They're reviewing it and updating it. It's due this Friday. We have the survey that we used for the board and the community last time. So the board is doing that survey, what they want to see in the next superintendent. I'm meeting with them before I go on vacation on December 2nd to finalize those documents. Everything will be printed and set to go, and it will go out after the first of the year. We'll run our placement ads simultaneously during the month of January and February. We will be doing a community focus group by survey and also holding in-person focus groups. This worked very well for the board the last time. Their target is to start interviewing by the end of February, beginning of March, and have somebody on board by July 1st. Sullivan West, I have little or no information. Sullivan West historically does not use BOCES to do their search. They are using a search consultant that I work with myself. This is a very niche service. Not many people around the state do it. The DSs do it, and there's a set of search consultants. You had one that I have not dealt with before.
Yeah, from both.
Well, no, then it is the same group. And the Rabbits, right? There's two of them in Buffalo, so you might have had the other one. But we share information because coincidentally, 4 years ago when I started here, we were in the exact same situation. Sullivan West and Tri-Valley were both doing a search at the exact same time.
No, that's funny.
I was doing the search for Tri-Valley, and Dr. and Dr. Ramming were doing it for Sullivan West. So they've been secured to do it. I work very closely with them. We exchange information.
Is that when Nancy retired?
Yes. Okay. So
He recruited me 15 years ago.
right, same group. They're devoted, And they're good people. I've worked with them before and we make sure each other doesn't make mistakes. You know, they ask for my input, so I always know what's going on, even though we're not doing the search.
That's polite.
I have a responsibility to report things to the state education department. I do not know who they're going to use as their interim. But Mr. Walker knows that as soon as the board makes their decision, I have to be notified, just like I told Tanya, once you folks at Liberty made your decision, I needed to be notified. Because it's a formal process that needs to be done by the DS, notify the state education department, the New York State Council of School Superintendents, the New York State School Boards Association, and the myriad other legal entities that need to know who is the superintendent.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's it for you?
You got it.
Moving right along now to 10.01, policy 3430, diversity, equity, and inclusion, second reading and approval, discussion and approval. All right, folks, we're not going to read this out loud.
We need a motion.
We do. We need a motion. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Anthony. Okay, now we need to open it to discussion. Are there any comments or questions on this second read? Is everybody comfortable with the wording? Or set?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Excellent, unanimous. Thank you, Jean. And finally, board member comments. I'm going to start. Anthony, can I start with you? Linda.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
already here.
That's amazing.
Thank you all for all you do.
Ken,
Nothing, thank you.
Sue,
I'm the same.
and I guess I will.
What about our ladies?
Yeah, what about those?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot that.
Carol.
Carol and Carol. Carol Clark, you're on top there in our screen. You have a comment?
No,
Thank you.
I'm good.
Lisa, Nick, do you have a comment? Carol? You are muted, Carol. You have muted yourself, sweetie. Unmute.
That's because my husband came home and the dog barked and the cats came in and then he made dinner. And so I had to mute myself through the whole thing.
So is that
Happy
your
Thanksgiving. I could go on if you want me to go on. I have lots more.
No, you're just fine, Carol.
All right. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and see you in December.
And since Kathy is not here, could you do it? Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Yep.
And thank you all, as always. That's for you guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Be safe, get home safely. Maria, did you want something?
I just want to say thank you to all of you.
See my text.
For everything that
You
you
texted,
do.
you're right there.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Maria. You're a pleasure to work with.
I emailed him, yeah, he did it. And I was the same way. He's
Log out your
superstitious.
computer,
He doesn't mail it.
shut them down.
I see him, but already knows. I already have some.
I'm on main campus.